Hey everyone, and welcome back to Tech Talk with Boyum. I'm your host, Leat, and today we are getting into something that probably doesn't get talked about enough, but really should, product data. More specifically, what happens when your ERP system has reached its limits and why integrating it with PIM can make a huge difference in how you handle product information across the board. And joining me today is my colleague, Joe Walsh. He's a channel manager here at Boyum, and he's been working very closely with product information management systems for a long time. Joe, thank you for joining us in this episode.
Oh, hey, Larry. Thanks for having me. I look forward to our chat.
So to get straight to it, ERP systems, they're sort of the backbone of operations for a lot of companies. But the second you try to do anything slightly more complex, right, with product content, you kind of run into walls. And maybe you can explain a bit why that happens.
Yeah, sure. So ERP, you're right. ERPs are the backbone of a business, and they're really in place to manage the economics and finance of the business. So because of that, they have to be really rigid in how they're set up and how they're used in the business. And product data, interestingly, is kind of the opposite of that. But product data is a mosaic of data. It's anything from big, long descriptions, specification documents, lots of attribute information, and images even. And all of that type of data is really not well managed in ERP systems. So that's why you have another palette, if you will, to manage product data outside of an ERP system.
Okay, so like basically what happens is when a company tries to sort of force the product data into the ERP, they end up with sort of silos of data flying around, right?
Yeah, you're right. So a couple things happen. Sometimes companies will try and over-engineer their ERP to contain fields for product data, and that can be a very cumbersome process. It's never pleasant to just create new user-defined fields in ERP over and over again. So what happens is by default, companies will just manage product data in different silos in their business. There'll be a lot of spreadsheets floating around. There'll be these file share folders that people access to get data. And when you're doing that, you never know what the latest version of data is. So often people are confused as to what's right, and there's a lot of bottlenecks in the business that create a lot of lapse in time to correct the data. So that's one real problem that we see when companies try to manage data, product data in PIM, and B often have it outside the system all over the place in different silos.
And I can imagine that when you're saying this, it probably feels familiar to a lot of our listeners that have maybe their data stored in ERP systems like that. And then it becomes more than just an annoyance. I can imagine it really slows operations down, and it really can have quite a negative impact. I can imagine, especially with like product launches and like when you're trying to enter new markets and you have all that data.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, in today's environment, there's so much demand on product information. Businesses have more opportunities to sell product in different marketplaces and with different partners that they establish. And that means that they need to get their data to more places, right? And typically do it timely. So when you're in that sort of a crunch of having to deliver data, time matters, and you want to reduce as many bottlenecks as you have in the business that what might prevent you from delivering, really good grade A product information to your trading partners. So that's today's environment. There's so much demand on good product data. So having a good lean process behind it and a good tech stack to support that really matters.
And I think that's like a good segue, because we did mention product information management systems like in the beginning of the interview. And so this is where a PIM system comes in. Like, what do companies see and how does it help when they separate sort of the data and have the product information in a PIM system?
Yeah, well, what it's going to do is it's going to support some really important functions in the business. So when people implement product information management, and there's really good adoption behind it. There's really good, I would say, stakeholder investment in the business to drive it. You're helping out these important functions in a business. You're helping the marketing organization. You're helping the product management organization. You're helping the IT organizations. All these important functions in a business now have a lean way to see product data and where it is in its stage of publishing, and they know what their roles and functions are to enhance and enrich that data so that it's ready for market. So all that is made available with the PIM system in the spirit of getting great content to market and doing it in a timely fashion.
I also think like it's important to our listeners is also that a PIM doesn't necessarily have to replace an ERP system. It can complement it, right? So maybe you can talk about how in that case, what would be the best practices of sort of separating the data between the ERP and PIM?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think that's maybe the first place you start when you contemplate implementing PIM. There needs to be agreement in a business on what belongs in PIM versus what belongs in ERP. So we urge our customers to have that discussion early on. Make sure you kind of draw some lines in the sand on what fields are important for the ERP system versus what's important for product information management. And over time, that it's not as complex as it may sound. It becomes pretty obvious what's important for product data and how it fits in PIM versus the ERP system. So start early in the conversation, and also think about a workflow that is optimal. So when you onboard product data, what does that look like? Where's the best place to start that? Is it in the ERP system by creating a raw SKU item number with some basic information, and then we enrich in PIM? Or do we start the life of a product inside PIM, enrich it, and then send some basic item information back to the ERP to establish it as a sellable product for your business? So there's a lot of ways into doing it, but if you have the conversation, if you understand how you're currently doing things and have a conversation around optimizing it, you can kind of rearrange and optimize a process to complement the business using both systems.
And what kind of data do we typically see that companies see the best sort of result in putting to a PIM system as opposed to the ERP?
Yeah, so where there's complexity around product data, that should go into PIM. So you think about all the attribute information, variants, when you have a lot of images, those things by default belong in PIM. I wouldn't even think about putting that stuff in ERP. And then a lot of it comes down to the complexity of your business. The type of products you sell and the complexity behind them. So a lot of kitting and parts and things of that nature that really you could model inside a PIM and lower the burden in ERP. So it really comes down to the complexity of your business and the complexity of the products, and how you want to present that information out to your markets.
Okay. And like you talk about the sort of process of integrating the ERP and PIM. Could you maybe talk a bit about how that usually works in practice? You mentioned that, as you said, it doesn't have to be super complex. What kind of timeline do we usually see here in integrating PIM with an existing ERP system as a business?
Yeah, so that gets down to some of the implementation tactics, right? So we see customers, they may already have their PIM or their ERP in place naturally, and then PIM follows. We will typically start a project off by identifying all the data sources, and then modeling, doing an import into the PIM application, in this case Perfion, and do some modeling. We'll create a workflow that is acceptable to the business so that all the users have a function and understanding of how they're using the tool. Then we'll start to identify fields that we want to map to ERP and vice versa, from ERP to the PIM system. It's not a long process if you agree on what fields belong where. And in our case, you can have data sync from the PIM system to ERP, sort of in a one-way fashion. You can do it in reverse from ERP to PIM. So it's a bidirectional integration that you can deploy, and it can also be event-driven if you set up some scheduling in the PIM system. So it really depends on your setup and how your team works. But the point is, you don't need to reinvent your stack. You're just adding a layer that makes the product data usable in your business.
And when we look at companies that have implemented this, what kind of companies do we especially see that this is like a huge benefit for?
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, the list is growing. I think back in the day, when PIM wasn't a household name, you had sort of the top tier businesses that had a lot of excess funds, if you will, investing in it, and they were sort of that northern light that sees the problem and wants to solve it, right? So they were big businesses with lots of products and wanted to be first to market to get with their product information. Now we're seeing that movement move down to mid-market and even small businesses that have a lot of products, some level of complexity behind the product information, and a lot of demand from the marketplace to consume that information. So it really fits a lot of profiles of businesses. But at the end of the day, they're manufacturers, they're distributors, they're retailers, they're wholesalers, and again, the demands on their data is huge. And there's another component to this, and that is they want to get good reporting out of the system on what's the health of their data, right? What's the data quality that we have? How do we benchmark that and score that against other competitors in the marketplace? You can win in the marketplace with great data. It matters because everything is tied to search and that overall product experience that a customer appreciates when they're buying something, right? So all that applies in the world of product data and product information management.
And I think you touched upon that very, very good. What I keep hearing is that with PIM, it sort of creates value across the whole chain, right? Like both internal processes as well as when your customers, when you have that data and you have correct data across all your channels, then that creates a sort of credibility to your customers as well, right?
Oh, yes. I mean, you hit it right on the head there, Lair. I mean, when we think about our day-to-day lives and how we consume information, how we buy products, and where we go to buy that product that we want, it's not too different in the business world, in the B2B world, and I think that's what we're talking about here predominantly. So how you help that business make a good decision matters. It may not even come down to buying the product. It could be just you're supporting a customer with information that helps them proceed in some process in their daily life. It doesn't even have to be about buying the product. So all that in many ways comes back to how you architect product information in your PIM system to support your publishing channels. PIM is a great tool for creating a foundation of product data, and then allowing other systems to take advantage of that. And in today's world of AI, it's paramount that you have a strong foundation of product data, because AI is going to demand that your product data is well organized so that these language models can lay on top of it and interpret and respond in a way that is very powerful to the consumer.
Yeah, and also definitely for companies that want to extend into different markets, like with different. I can imagine when you have all that product and you need different currencies, different languages, and also now you hear with the EU and the DPP, the Digital Product Passport requirements, right? Like so much more. It's becoming more and more important to have your data organized and to enter that market with already with data that is easily scalable across
Yeah,
markets, right?
yeah, you're right. I mean, gets back to the demands on your data. And you mentioned multilingual. You mentioned DPP. What's next? What else is coming down the pipeline in terms of a data standard in some market that's important to you, right? So again, foundational product information. Put the time into talk internally with your constituents and understand how you categorize things, what you're naming things, how you standardize or normalize on values and attributes in your business about your product information. All those things matter early in the game to help prepare you for delivering data to wherever it's needed.
And like one thing, for example, let's say that a business is thinking, you know what, PIM is definitely a huge need for us. We have these issues with only using the ERP as we talked about. How would a business with the different options available, how would they go out looking for a PIM system that is right for their specific needs?
Well, I think always start internally, excuse me, with the challenge you're trying to solve. This goes with any technology purchase, right? Start with the business challenge. Define that as best you can. Maybe it's we're not getting our specs to our dealers in a timely manner. It's taken us 3 weeks, and our critical dealer network needs this stuff in 3 days, right? All right, there's a great business challenge that you can now frame up around the conversation of PIM and put an ROI behind it, right? So look for these business challenges inside the business, define them together with your team, and then start to attach a value behind it. Now you're in the justification mode of going out and looking at a PIM system and seeing what fits your business.
And also like whether, because there's different solutions, there's like whether a PIM system is a standardized solution or like there are different pros and cons. Could you maybe talk a bit about that aspect?
Yeah, sure. So there's, I think like any technology, there's some that are industry domain specific. There are some that are unique to what ERP system you're running. There are some that are open source, right? And that might ask your business to be a little more penchant towards staffing developers in your business, right? So there's hosted platforms, right? Perfion is a hosted platform that plays well with several ERP systems, namely Microsoft and SAP B1 and some others that we're agnostic to. So you start with the technology you have, the business problem you're trying to address, and then most importantly, most critical is have the people in your business buy into this. The people that are actually going to be in the system using it day to day, you want them to fully buy in and adopt this, because if you don't adopt it, then you've wasted a lot of energy and effort. So at the end of the day, it does come down to those internal folks that will be logging in every day and collaborating and producing beautiful product data out to market. Make sure that they're invested in the decision process.
I think that goes very well into my next question, because I think businesses probably wonder like which internal teams could see the biggest benefit of a PIM system. Where do we usually see that the greatest benefit?
Yeah, it's great. There's the usual cast of characters I find in my meetings and my conversations. A lot of it's a mix, but a lot of times it's the IT organization that's clamoring for this initially, and they're looking to accomplish a couple things. They want to make sure all the tech stack integrates, right? So integrations are key to them. They want well-oiled technologies that talk to one another, because if that's happening, they're getting less demands to fix stuff, right? So that's one area of the business that is very interested in PIM, rightfully so. And most times their baby's the ERP, and they're trying to scale the ERP. They're going through upgrades. in ERP, and they don't want to over-engineer it. So they start looking at outwardly to a PIM system. And they hear from others in the organization, their marketers, their product managers, daily peppering them with questions about where product data is, right? So that's when a light bulb goes off there. Marketers indefinitely, they know they need something like this, but they don't always know how to present it to the business. So in some cases, it seems like this big project that may overwhelm people. So how do they bring this to the organization and give it lift? So that's another area where there's a pain point, but they'll often come to the fore and want to start a project. That is common. I would say the third group is the product management organization. They're the people that have a lot of pressure on them to build a pipeline of products that fits a market, whether that's helping to inform engineers and designers and manufacturing to build something, or maybe they're in a distributor and they see an opportunity to collaborate with a group of suppliers to sell certain product to certain markets. They want a playground to model product information in one place. So PIM is sometimes the conversation starts with the product management organization.
I mean, I think that's definitely what I see as like one of the greatest benefits of introducing a PIM system is like the collaboration between the different departments, because you have the different departments that can gain a huge advantage of it, but also the collaboration, everybody working from the same data and sort of removing that silos that we talked about.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's all about having it in one place and giving everybody visibility into where a product resides in its life cycle, right? Do I need to add these attributes to this product group set before I accept and approve it for marketing to now take to market and do their piece, right? So all those things can be modeled inside of a PIM system to give an organization great visibility on where product, what stage it's in, and what due dates are coming down the pipeline. So a wonderful opportunity to collaborate in a business.
Yeah, definitely. So just to sort of close it all off, what would you say are the three key areas that a business can improve with a PIM?
Yeah, so I love this question because it's a good way to tie a bow around this conversation and summarize it quickly. I see three, now maybe four big areas where companies will get immense value from a PIM system. The first one is data quality. Data quality matters all day long. Data quality, data quality, data quality. You can't say it enough. There's nothing more frustrating than when somebody buys the wrong product from you. Maybe it's your website. They get something that isn't what they feel they ordered, and it's because an attribute was wrong. The color was wrong from what the website said, and then that product has to ship back, right? Then you have all this friction in the channel. I mean, that's just one example of how data quality can kind of bite you in the butt there, right? So that's one area. I think the other area is you're optimizing. It's a chance to optimize the ERP system and some other tech stacks you have, like your e-commerce engine or your CMS, right? So if you create some dependencies on PIM rather than ERP, you're keeping the ERP system optimized. You're lightening the burden on your ERP system. Don't ask your ERP to do too much. That's how I'll state that. Time to market is big, right? That's another key area where businesses get value. I was talking earlier about the immense amount of demand on a company's product data, different places where you can sell that product and deliver that product information. That's only going to continue to grow exponentially in today's modern era. So focus on reducing the time to market upon which you can deliver products to your customers. Then finally, I'm going to come back to this other notion of focusing on the foundational element that PIM brings to your business. Having good, clean, structured product data will enable you in the AI marketplace, which is already here and whizzing by like a fast train.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you so much, Joe. It was a very interesting conversation. And thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you, Laird. I enjoyed the conversation. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. And for the listeners, if you're curious to get deeper into how PIM can optimize your ERP system, we've created a brochure just for that. And check out the link in the episode description where you can download it and you can learn more about this topic. Thank you for listening in. I'm your host, Leat, and see you next time for more Tech Talk with Boyum.